On the morning of August 17, 1996, the local police department in Savile Town, Yorkshire, England, received a report of the disappearance of twins Megan and Barbara Noit. According to their relatives and friends, the 22-year-old sisters did not return to their rented apartment. According to the concierge, the worried girls left the house around 11 p.m. on August 14th and had not been seen since. The police interviewed everyone who knew the Noit sisters, but no one knew anything about their possible whereabouts. Inspection of nearby areas of the city and questioning of local residents yielded no results. The assumption of the girls' abduction was made, and suspicions fell on numerous Muslim communities in Savile Town. Police officers sent from Dewsbury raided Muslim centers, but failed to find anything related to the missing girls. A week later, on August 23rd, one of the sisters, Megan Noit, was found unconscious on the abandoned railway branch in Savile-on-Est by a group of teenage pedestrians. The girl was taken to the hospital and, according to doctors' reports, was under the influence of psychotropic substances. Thanks to the efforts of the medical staff, her condition normalized, and the police attempted to question her. However, the victims' accounts were disjointed and unclear. They mentioned railway tracks, an adjacent forest, and a psychiatric hospital where they and their sister were allegedly held under the supervision of a person referred to by Megan simply as him. The girls' statements caused quite a stir, as the abandoned hospital Honest Asylum had been located in the forest on the outskirts of Savile Town for a long time, but it had closed down in 1984 due to outdated treatment methods, including lobotomy. However, while the story of the abandoned hospital seemed strange, it perfectly matched the assumption of the sisters' abduction. The police, who arrived at the scene, searched the abandoned building and the surrounding area, but found no signs of human presence or Barbara Noit. The only discovery was made in the partially flooded basement and was a relatively modern VHS cassette. The partially preserved label read Barbie. Megan Noit confirmed that this was how her sister was referred to by him. The videotape was sent for restoration and digitization in Dewsbury. However, the employee working on it was found hanged in his apartment on August 28th. Remains of burned film from the cassette were also found there. The computer monitor was found smashed in the employee's backyard, and the system unit, which presumably contained the digitized recording results, disappeared without a trace. The case of the Noit sisters remains unsolved to this day. Barbara Noit was declared missing, and Megan Noit still refuses to speak about what happened. The contents of the Barbie video recording remain a mystery. "Son, we need to talk about internet safety," I said, sitting down on the floor next to my child. His laptop was open, and he was engrossed in playing Minecraft on a public server. Messages were rapidly scrolling in the chat window on the side of the screen. "Son, can you tear yourself away from your game for a minute?" He closed the laptop and looked at me. "Dad, are you going to tell another one of those silly, scary stories?" he asked, skeptically. I feigned offense, but then smiled. "I thought you liked my stories." Growing up, my son listened to my tales of children encountering witches, ghosts, werewolves, and trolls. Like many generations of parents, I used scary stories to instill morals and teach safety lessons. Single dads like me have to make the most of the parenting toolkit we've got. I loved them when I was 6. But now that I'm older, they don't scare me anymore. They just seem dumb. If you're really going to tell an internet story, could you make it super scary? My son looked at me with a challenge. I glanced at him doubtfully. He crossed his arms and said firmly, "Dad, I'm 10 now. I can handle it, HM." "All right, I'll do my best." And I began the tale. Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Colby. The expression on my son's face made it clear that he wasn't impressed by such a cliched opening. Colby ventured into the online world and visited several kids' websites. After a while, he started chatting with other children in gaming chats and forums. He befriended a 10-year-old boy named Helper23. They shared a love for the same video games and cartoons. They laughed at each other's jokes and played new games together. After a few months of friendship, Colby gave Helper 23 6 diamonds in the game they played. It was a generous gift. Colby's birthday was approaching, and Helper 23 wanted to send him a cool present in real life. Colby thought it wasn't a big deal to give Helper 23 his home address, as long as he promised not to tell it to strangers or adults. Helper 23 swore not to show it to anyone, not even his parents, and set off to prepare the package. I paused the story and asked my son, "Do you think that was a good idea?" "No," he said, shaking his head decisively. Despite his initial reaction, he was getting drawn into the narrative. Colby thought so too. He felt uneasy about giving his home address to someone he had never met in person, and that feeling only grew stronger. By the time he put on his pajamas and got ready for bed, anxiety and guilt overwhelmed him. He was about to confess to his parents. The punishment would be severe, but the relief and clear conscience would be worth it. He tossed and turned in bed, waiting for his parents to wake him up. My son knew that the really scary part was coming up. He leaned forward with wide eyes. I deliberately spoke in a whisper. Colby heard all the sounds in the house. The washing machine was running in the bathroom. Branches scratched against the brickwork outside. His younger brother cooed in the nursery. There were other ordinary household noises too. Finally, footsteps echoed in the hallway. "Dad," the boy exclaimed eagerly. "I need to tell you something." His father stuck his head into the doorway at an odd angle. In the darkness, it seemed like his mouth wasn't moving, and there was something off about his eyes. "Yes, son," his voice sounded strange too. "Are you okay, Dad?" the boy asked. "Yep," the father replied in a strangely forced tone. Colby pulled the blanket up to his chin. "Is Mom here too?" "I'm here." His mother's head appeared above his father's. Her voice sounded fake. "Are you going to tell us that you gave your home address to Helper 23? You shouldn't have done that. We told you never to share personal information online," she continued. "He wasn't a child at all. He was just pretending. Do you know what he did? He broke into our house and killed us both. And all just to have some fun with you." A fat man in a wet jacket appeared in the doorway. In his hands were 2 severed heads. Colby screamed in horror as the man threw the heads onto the floor, entered the room, and pulled out a knife. My son screamed too, covering his face with his hands. But I wasn't about to stop. I'd started, so I had to finish the story. A few hours later, the boy died. His cries turned into weak whimpering, then ceased altogether. In the ensuing silence, the killer heard a baby crying in the next room and pulled the knife out of Colby. There was a special thrill in store for him. He had never killed an infant before and relished the moment. Leaving the dead Colby behind, he exited his room, entered the nursery, and approached the crib, lifting the baby into the air. He examined him. When he picked up the baby, he stopped crying, looked into the killer's face, and smiled sweetly. The killer had never held a baby before, but he instinctively rocked him and even wiped his bloodied hands on the blanket to allow himself to pinch the baby's cheek. "Hello, little one," the killer said softly. The dark desire melted away, replaced by a warm, tender feeling. He left the nursery with the baby. Taking the baby home, he named him William and raised him as his own. I finished my story. My son was visibly shaking. Stuttering, he said, "But Dad, my name is William." I gave him a loving smile and tousled his hair. "Of course, buddy." Forgetting about the computer game, William ran sobbing up the stairs to his room. I think deep down, he enjoyed my story. I'm lying under the bed in shock, tears flooding the floor and mixing with the dust. I'm starting to suffocate. It's so hard to breathe, my heart pounding furiously in my chest. I'm waiting for death. My end is near. Soon my blood will stain the floor. My last tears will fall. Up to this point, it was just an ordinary day. My parents went on a business trip, and I was sent to my aunt and uncle's country house. Everything was fine. The house was in a private sector, not far from a lake. I was having a great time. We relaxed, swam, sunbathed, but little did I know, it was my last day spent with them. The sky clouded over, the rain started, and we headed home. Later, we just watched a movie together. Evening fell. It was dark outside, pouring rain. The power went out. Probably due to the rain, some malfunction. Oh well, I grabbed a candle and headed to my room to read before bed, while my aunt and uncle went to the kitchen. Walking down the small hallway, I entered my room. It's dark. The candle barely illuminates the room. It feels eerie. I'll leave the door open. Lightning flashes one after another outside, tree shadows reflecting on the wall. A creepy atmosphere, but I try not to pay attention and continue reading my book. Stop. Wait a minute. What's this? I was distracted from my book, a shadow of a person gliding along the wall. But how? Who could it be? There's a 2-meter fence around the house. They hurriedly walk along my window, paused, and continue walking. Oh my God! Who is this? I tossed the book onto the bed and ran to the kitchen. I saw someone outside the window. There's someone in the yard, I shouted to my aunt and uncle, scared. Don't worry, you imagined it. It's probably just the shadow of a tree, my uncle reassured me. But I definitely saw a silhouette, I said fearfully. Go to your room. Everything's fine, my aunt continued. I had no choice but to leave. I went into my room, looked out the window. No one seemed to be there. I lay down on the bed and continued reading. A minute, 2, 5. It was all quiet. I was already asleep when I was awakened by a scream. It was my aunt's scream. Not understanding what was happening, I got up from the bed and headed to the kitchen. Help! Hell, the screams cut off. What's happening? I stood in the middle of the dark corridor, my legs shaking. I was scared. I slowly approached the kitchen, hearing some rustling from there. Now I'm close. What to do? I decided to peek around the corner. What I saw shocked me. In the middle of the kitchen, my aunt and uncle were sitting on chairs, everything around them covered in blood, their faces resembling bloody mess, clothes torn, blood dripping from their heads onto the floor. Oh my God. She's dead. Next to her sits my uncle. Oh God, who did this? Damn it, someone's walking there, behind them. This person walks by, what? They have a knife in their hand. They approached my uncle. What are they doing? Blood is dripping onto the floor. This scum is laughing. They killed them and they're laughing. After torturing the body, they slowly turned towards me. No, not this. I, slowly leaning against the wall, head towards my room. What will happen to me now? They'll kill me. Tears slowly streamed down my cheeks, trembling coursing through my entire body, panicked fear preventing me from thinking, with only one thought in my mind, just to reach the room and hide. Just to get to the room and hide. Now, a meter away from the door, finally I'm in the room. Grabbing the phone, I crawl under the bed, frantically dialing the police. Rings. A voice. They answered. I whispered the address. All I could say was, help, come quickly, he killed them. Help, a male voice on the phone, we'll be there soon. That's when I returned to the beginning. Tremors throughout my body, fear in my soul. Is this really the last minutes of my life? This person will kill me just like they did to them. What's this? I hear footsteps. They're getting closer to my room. It's the end for me. Slowly, my killer approaches the room, and I lie under the bed, anticipating death. They're very close. I can see their boots now. Slowly approaching the bed, they leave bloody traces behind. 2 meters left, closer and closer. But what's this? It's a police siren. They've arrived. The killer quickly leaves the room, I hear their fast, receding steps. The door slams shut. They're gone. I let out a slow exhale and burst into tears. Am I saved after all? It's been 4 to 6 minutes. Footsteps echoed throughout the house. The lights came on. Numerous male voices sounded. I struggled to crawl out from under the bed, but couldn't get up. All I could manage was to shout. I'm here. Then I saw a man in uniform. He said something, but I didn't hear. He picked me up and carried me to another room. When I came to my senses and calmed down a bit, I told him everything. After that, he called my parents, explained everything, and they came and took me home. The killer has not been found to this day.